bit of a poem. It seems quite pertinent to what we're discussing. And the poem is: rise like lions after slumber, in unvanquishable number. Shake your chains to earth like dew, which in sleep had fallen on you. Ye are many, they are few. And that's an excerpt from The Mask of Anarchy by Percy Bysshe Shelley. He and his family happened to live locally to where I live. Of course, they don't now. And they've left a huge amount of their property to the local community, which is why I quite enjoy that little excerpt. It means a lot to everyone who lives in and around Boscombe, which is in Bournemouth in Dorset. So, the end game. This was originally a term used in chess for the final moves of a game. The last few moves which generally your opponent can't avoid. They're just unable to do because there's so few pieces left on the board, and as a consequence there's no way to put a counter-attack to these final moves. Now, the context that I want to discuss the end game about tonight is, of course, called New World Order and their eugenics program, which is incidentally called Operation Endgame. Their control of planetary resources, which of course includes air, water, food, and all the minerals, and how we fit into all of that, whether we recognise it, whether we can see it going on, and whether any of us have got any solutions to how, if this is in fact going on, how we can deal with it. How does anyone that's in the chat feel about that? Have you got any views on it, Sarah?
To be honest, I don't really know a lot about the New World Order and eugenics and everything like that, so it'd be interesting to hear what you've got to say. So, not really at the moment.
Well, I think you'd be surprised how much you do know about it, really, because vaccination programs, they're all part of it. They're targeting certain older folk, less well folk, people that generally can't fight disease off very well. So that's one part of it.
Can I just ask who's they?
The so-called New World Order.
Yeah, that's the bit I'm not quite so sure about. I don't know who they are.
Well, not many people do.
Didn't the eugenics movement start in Nazi Germany? That's when it started, didn't it? When they started experimenting, and then when the war finished, inverted commas, that's when the Americans brought all the Nazi scientists over to America. I saw something on YouTube. They got these underground bunkers where they kept people in appalling conditions, just getting them to work and experimenting on them and stuff.
I think that the experimentation has been going on a lot longer than that. And in fact, this so-called endgame has been going on a lot longer than most of us would imagine. My view on it is that it is all part of their same game, or the same game, and we are the guinea pigs in it all. It's a lot more sophisticated now than it was, although a lot of the methods for depopulation are still the same, wars, etc. They are used as a way to cull populations, and in some cases the culling is quite significant. There are also lots of other bits of program. I mean, obviously GMOs, genetically modified organisms, in the food chain are without a doubt another part of it. Fluoridation of the water supply is another part of it, and of course what they're doing to our skies with the chemtrails. It does appear to me that we're being assaulted on many, many fronts, and as far as I can see, there's not a lot left that can be messed with. And I was just wanting to really see, how people have got solutions to any of this. I mean, in part of my mind, wandering around in a gas mask, in a chem suit, growing all your own food indoors under lights, would seem to be the obvious way out of it, but I'm sure lots of us couldn't maintain a lifestyle like that. I mean, I certainly couldn't. I would just be too claustrophobic like that. I need outdoors, I need the sunshine, we all do. It's part of what keeps us alive. So I think, Sarah, you probably do know a lot more about this than you think you do. I think we all do, but we're not very good at putting all the pieces of the jigsaw together, and that's kind of what I'm hoping to do tonight. So any of you that have got any of the basics of these pieces and you think it's relevant, do get in touch, do call in. It's really important that your views are heard by all of us, because without the collective consciousness of all of us, we're an easy target, and it will take all of us. So anyone who wants to comment on this, you are welcome. It is your news show. So please join us. How do you feel about what I've just described now, Sarah?
I'm still trying to get my head around what eugenics is. Is it because I'm thinking of selectively breeding. People selectively breed all the time anyway, don't they, to try and improve on animals? And I suppose in ancient times, the fittest people probably bred together to get the fittest people. And in most populations that I can think of, it's normally the poor who've got higher population rates than the older people. So I'm not really quite sure what eugenics is in the way you mean.
Well, eugenics is about controlling the numbers of population. Now, whether that be through female or male sterilisation, whether it be through damaging the DNA, damaging the reproductive system, whether it be starvation, or any other way that life is terminated outside of a natural process. Is that,
I understand where you're coming from, but as well, I think like the Catholic religion, are they supposed to be part of the New World Order? Because you'd think if they wanted to promote the non-breeding of certain sectors of society, that they would agree with condoms and other artificial birth control. But it's normally the poorer nations anyway that are got high numbers of children and follow those rules anyway, isn't it, I suppose?
Well, I think you'll find that all religions are part of it, with perhaps the exception of Buddhism, although the way things are happening in Indonesia, it's quite shocking that people that have that particular religious view are behaving the way they are. I mean, it's all, it's just totally against all the teachings of the Buddha. But there again, to take life is against the teachings of any of the religions, as far as I can tell. So the fact that a religion may or may not be part of something is kind of irrelevant, because they all are anyway. They're all about controlling population. Does that help you at all?
In some ways it makes sense, but in others it doesn't, to me, to be honest.
Okay, Nairis wanted to join in. You there, Nairis? Well, she either can't find the mute button or she's gone, which is a shame.
I definitely understand a bit about the Catholic Church and everyone controlling. I understand all that. They do like to control. But I'm not quite sure how far or what these methods are that they do take to control. I know there's chemtrails and stuff like that. So, and fluoride in the water.
At the end of the day, anything that is nature disruptive is a form of population control. I mean, nature is the supreme authority. Well, universal energy is, but planetary law, nature is the supreme authority, and we are all subject to it. And when a species' unbelievable interference with the natural order of things puts the whole planet in danger, every other species, not just us, but everything, every plant, every animal, it just seems to me that these programs are getting totally out of control. And what are we really doing about it? In my mind, there's lots of people seem to think that signing a petition will deal with it, which of course it won't. Most of the petition sites, not all of them, but most of them, like Avaz, etc., are controlled by the authorities anyway. I recently, or this past week, have been getting lots of personal messages sent from a computer. They're not from the individuals. The individuals have gone to sign a petition about standing shoulder to shoulder with the data whistleblower, and really the only thing that I can see is that it's being used to collect information about people that could well end up doing the same sort of thing themselves. A petition rarely changes anything. I mean, occasionally there is good news about it, but rarely does it really change anything.
I also find with a lot of them petitions is they don't have any information really with it. They want you to sign a petition, but they don't actually really say much information. So to actually get the proper whole story, you have to go off and research it loads yourself anyway.
Yeah, and often if you do the right research, you wouldn't sign it.
Yeah, that's what I've
Because, of course,
done.
you've got to research about the petition site itself. You know, I mean, data is one of the most powerful things now, and the more information that authorities can have on their population and even other populations, the more power they have over that. You know, this is why the US are data mining everything. And of course, in the UK, I'm absolutely certain that all that information comes flowing back, even though it would be totally unlawful for the government authorities in this country to try and extract the same amount of information about people that live in the UK. They're quite happy to have it passed on to them by an agency outside of the UK, because then, of course, that's not unlawful. I'm not even sure that it would be illegal either.
One of the good things about... were you just going to talk then?
No, that's cool.
I was going to say, one of the good things about petitions that have been set up by genuine people, because there are a lot of petitions that are set up by genuine people, is that they can go pretty viral pretty quick on things like Facebook and that, and it does raise awareness to certain issues and does make people think about certain things. So it's not completely bad, I don't think, like petitions. I think they do serve a purpose, and they do let people know that a lot of people don't agree necessarily with what they're trying to do, which can't be a bad thing, really.
Well, I mean, I still feel that the purpose of a lot of them is to collect information about people that feel a certain way about things.
Another thing that they do is they probably think, oh, well, I'll make people think that they've done their bit.
Well, yeah, of course. And then they go back to watching the TV thinking that the world's going to change because they hit a few keys on a keyboard and can now put their feet up and go back to watching X Factor or whatever it is that people watch these days on TV. But really what I'm trying to get to is putting all these pieces of the puzzle together so that we've got a more complete picture, rather than, as normally happens, a particular part of it will be discussed quite thoroughly and people's views examined, and then another part of it, but they're discussed unrelated. They're not joined together. And what I'm trying to do through this hour is to join these pieces together so that people, all of us, can have a much better view, a vision on what is going on, basically. I mean, each of us it is quite specialised in one area or another. None of us can be the masters of everything, so we do have to specialise a little bit. And I feel that as a consequence of that, we are not necessarily seeing the bigger picture all the time, because we will be almost blinkered into the fields that either have an expertise in, or fields that are of great interest to us. And often we will exclude other areas, but actually they are just as important and have as a major effect on us as the ones that we are looking at. So yeah, that's basically what I'm trying to do for this show, is to just put the pieces together. I was hoping Nairis was going to join us, because part of her areas of expertise is permaculture, and of course that's plant related, so she would be fairly knowledgeable on the GMO side of things and how using permaculture will provide a much better food stock for all of us. Hello?
Yeah, I am here, Bob. So,
hi.
Hello. The kids are still up, and one of them's having a massive temper tantrum, so yeah, you might be able to hear some roaring in the background. Well, yeah, as I've said before, that's why I'm drawn so much to permaculture, because it is positive action, and there's only so much horrific information you can take in, isn't there? I mean, obviously you want to be informed, but, you know, when you're taking too much, it does make you feel very heavy, doesn't it? And unable to, oh God, he's coming back, I might have to mute you. Shush. Sit down there and chill out. Oh God, hang on, sorry guys, I'm going to have to mute, hang on.
Oh, thanks for that, Nairis. I hope that it all gets sorted out for you. And if you can join us before the end, please do. Nairis is right, of course. It can be quite overwhelming. But that is if you examine everything in depth. I mean, all I'm trying to do for this show is just put the pieces next to each other and see if they fit. And as far as I can see, all of these pieces do seem to fit together. When you look at them, they are all part of the same agenda, and that being Agenda 21. This is a very dangerous document, and Codex Alimentarius is another very dangerous document, and it just goes on and on and on. And Agenda 21 is trying to use the green movement, green ideas, transition, etc., to further the aims of population control. So how do you... Oh, Lee, you want to have a quick word? Yeah, jump in, mate.
Yeah, sorry, I'm a bit late coming in. I was just cooking dinner for the little one. But yeah, just wanted to add to what you're saying about population control, and I personally, I don't buy it. I really don't buy it. And the reason why I don't buy it is, like you were saying, it's endgame on a chessboard. If you're saying somebody's doing this on purpose, then they've got a strategy, they've got moves. And I'm not being funny, if I wanted to depopulate the planet by a huge chunk dead quick, I'd just spread a virus into the slums. I'd do anthrax in Mumbai or in any of the other slums, and there all of a sudden there's, I don't know, how many we're talking, 20, 30 million people gone?
Well,
It's not about that. I'm not saying, so no, what the argument against that is that it's either that move, let's try that move, which is dead simple, let's just fucking fly a plane with proper chemicals, chemtrailing, over fucking the most populated foreign city. They're not going to do it to their own. It's the most populated foreign city, and fuck it, let's wipe them out. Do you know what I mean? One plane, the chance to get away with that, rather than constantly flying planes, slowly poisoning people over the cities, which move would you take, personally?
Well, there has been various documents put forward that suggest Ebola as a good method of achieving this. So it has already been discussed at high levels. And my guess on it would be that if it were ever found out, that would be totally unforgivable.
Come on, let's look at it seriously. Planning, we're going to do it, me and you, right? Which plan would be easier to get away with? Fly 700 flights over random areas, slowly, or maybe pay somebody to organise a flight that goes straight over the middle of most of the populated cities. 7 flights, say. Come on, which is easiest to get away with? If that was your end game.
Well, don't forget that these people don't work on a one lifetime policy. They're working in
Come on,
100-year policies.
Sorry, I'm putting a bit of a spanner in the works. This is how I feel. I don't believe there's a them as such. If you're going to assume there's a them, what it is, it's a huge group, a very small, huge group of small groups of greedy people. Right? They've been greedy, trying to, what's inside their little scope, they can't see beyond that. They're only interested in their own little greed and their home, and they can't see what's happening to the sheep in New Zealand because they're using a pesticide in Ireland. They ain't interested. They're just interested in closing the deal. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, absolutely.
So, because of the greed of all these separate people,
is corporations, and this is exactly how corporations work. And corporations, because their motive is profit, and therefore they have no empathy with life, are controlled by the money system. The money system is controlled by central banks. Central banks are controlled by the IMF. So there is a very few people that have got fingers stretched through various other organisations out to the whole.
I see what you're saying. I do get it, but it's like the Bilderberg meetings. People seem to. I've got this vision that there's big seminar of, I don't know, let's say 60 people sat in a room listening to one guy talk, or they're all sat around a big long table and they're discussing what they're going to do next. Bollocks. It's bollocks. Right? That's fiction. Think about it real. They're seminars where they're going to learn about certain technologies and things that are coming up. But when they're in the bar in the evening, or when they're walking the corridors, or when they're out in the garden having a chat, that's when the deals are done. Do you get what I mean? Think about it, reality.
I've never attended one, so I've never even seen where one is.
Have you been to a cricket club? Have you been to a pigeon, any kind of club? Have you been to the pub? Do you know what I mean? Think about it logically. They're humans. How do humans react? They don't want, the guy from Microsoft doesn't want the guy from fucking wherever to know he's doing a deal with a bloke. So he's not going to discuss it around a table with 60 other blokes. This is what we're going to do. If there's any dodgy dealings going on, it's going on chatting off the record. Do you know what I mean? What is the Bilderberg group? They're not going to fucking do these huge meetings and talk, oh, we're going to Agenda 21. It's not happening, man. It's greedy individuals that's fucking it all up, and they're greedy, conniving, clever fucking individuals. Do you get what I mean?
I do, yeah.
Come on, think about it. Just the people, if you can understand people, if you can stand there and watch 1,000 people walk by and try and understand what they're doing in their lives as they're walking past you. Do you know what I mean? You just got to try and understand what people are going through, and imagine being in that position yourself. Then imagine the worst case scenario. What would the alter me do? And somewhere in the middle, that's how they're behaving. Do you know what I mean? But it's nowhere near the extremes. It's somewhere in the middle. It's going to be very unlikely that it's going to be at the extremes of the behaviour spectrum. Do you know what I mean? They're just greedy individuals conniving that have on top of each other with all the so many greedy individuals conniving and piling and overlapping. It's created a fucking shithole for us all. That's how I see it. I don't think there is an end game. The end game is when they fucking realise they can't make any money anymore. It's not a good investment anymore to fucking rape the planet.
Well,
that is the end game.
That was exactly what one of my own solutions to all of this is. You know, if you starve the beast, then it can't function anymore. And it seems to me, rather than all these mass protests that are going on, and we've discussed what protest means before, if everyone just sat down and said, right, I'm just not going to pay tax anymore, then things would soon change. And I think that it wouldn't take very long either. I mean, there's a huge movement towards taking the resources away from the poorest in communities, those least able to look after themselves, and giving it to people that are well able to do without it. I mean, why are we letting this go on? You know, and it's not just in the UK, it's planetary. It's everywhere. And every population is going through a similar sort of thing. And did you have a comment on that, Sarah?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I agree a lot with what Lee was saying. I think people are often, because of the things that are actually going on, you know, you look around you and you think this can't be right. This world, there's so many things going on that just can't be right. It's easy for people to go down this route of feeling fear and thinking that people about this depopulation and that scientists are trying to kill everyone and this, that, and the other. But I don't believe that to be true either. I don't believe that there's loads of people just trying to kill us all. And I think if they did want to depopulise the world, they would do it in a different way, especially if it was over generations. You don't have to do it, if it's going to be over generations, you don't have to do it by poisoning them. You can do it via other mechanisms, maybe of education or taxation, like if they like tax, don't they? You know, like China did, for everyone to just have one child. Now, I think there's lots of other options if they was going to depopulate rather than just secretly poisoning us. And I think the more that people focus on this fear, the more it's likely to create a reality like that, and the more that it's going to create people thinking, well, fuck them, whoever them are, and the more angry that people are going to get, and just it's going to spread loads of energies that you don't really want to be spreaded. We create our own reality, and the solution to it is to focus on the positive that this world can be, and the positive things that people do, and the good work that lots of people do, whether they be scientists or dustmen or whoever they are.
No, I agree with you. A lot of it is about the fear, but in order to get rid of that, you need to be able to see the picture in the first place. If you can't see the picture, you're always going to live in the fear, because unless something's clear, it's a misty, murky thing that you don't really get your head round. It's always going to be a fearful thing.
I think the picture is so large, I don't think that while I'm me, Sarah, on this earth, that I'm ever going to probably see the whole picture.
Well, this is part of what I'm trying to do tonight, is to put pieces together so that we do get a better view of the picture. I mean, I'm not saying that we will, any of us at any time, see all of it, but if we can combine how we see things, that will improve the picture for all of us.
Yeah, and I totally agree with what you just said then, and it's also about working together to find these solutions, isn't it? And if people are a bit scared or unsure about what they believe the future to hold, well then it's really nice that other people can reassure them and say, well, I don't think it's going to be that bad. You know, I don't think it is the end game. You know, come on, let's all focus on getting the solutions together, and let's all focus on sorting this world out and making it a better place. So yeah, you're right, totally, 100%.
Well, thank you.
I think one of the first steps everyone's got to take is like what Dean was saying the other night, where it's just stop it. Stop what you're doing. Stop buying in supermarkets. Stop it. Do you know what I mean? Take the energy to go and find a guy that's selling eggs, or find a guy, do you know what I mean? If you've got a freezer in your house and you eat beef, go fucking you know what I mean? See if you can buy it from source and buy a freezer load of steak. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I totally agree. Or to get together with a bunch of your neighbours so that it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg. Yeah, I mean exactly that's the way communities should work. In the, you know, if enough people get together, you can go and buy a whole sack of rice rather than going to a supermarket and getting a kilo of it. You know, and then you just, you know, share the costs. Of course, it's going to be cheaper because you're not paying for all the packaging and the transport, etc., etc. You know, it's getting people to realise that if we do get together in a real way, we can make a massive difference. And that this is another part of the solutions to it, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. Because when I speak to people, just normal everyday people, they do seem to me to be aware. Like I'm aware. Most people I do know are aware that the world isn't working in their favour. Really, they work really, really hard, and they get it all taken back off them. People are totally 100% aware of it. What I've found that people aren't sure about is what they can do on a personal level, and they feel really disempowered to what they can do. So offering these solutions up is the best way forward. Because Dean was talking as well. Dean Clifford was talking the other day about how they was using Union petrol stations, and so if we just have our own companies again, make things national again, it's one way or another. Putting things back into our hands, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's exactly that's what brought us round. This is the full revolution, isn't it? Because this is what they were fighting for after the war and stuff. It's like, and then in the 70s came along, the 80s with the Thatcher, she took it all back off the public and gave it to the private again. Remember, the Industrial Revolution was all private hands. So is it a revolution? Or is it an evolution?
Well, the evolution would be to make sure that each and every one of us has what we need, as opposed to having to be in some form of modern slavery in order to achieve it. I don't think that it is necessary for everyone to be forced into labour doing something other than providing for their family.
I just don't know.
It's all about collective consciousness, isn't it? Because when enough people believe that can happen, it will happen. It's as simple as that, isn't it?
Well, yeah, that's another interesting word. In the middle of believe is lie, and in the middle of lie is I. It's not about people having a belief. It's about people knowing each other.
Well, yeah.
And starting in a small way in your street, as we described before with, buying commodities. And that will spread. Bit by bit, it will spread to the wider community, and then nationally, and then internationally. When a good thing gets going, it is very difficult for anybody to stop it. And we've seen that again and again. We see it even on mainstream media, really. When enough people get together, it's pretty much unstoppable without absolute brutality.
Well, again, I'm just being objective. I don't know. I must be in an objective mood tonight, Bob. Sorry, but it's like, how many million people need to march through the city of London before they don't go to war?
Well, even if
it's not
the
about
whole
the numbers,
marched
it's about the individual.
London, they would still do it because it had been planned for a long time. Iraq, there were millions of people in this country took to the streets about it, and it didn't make the slightest bit of difference.
That's exactly what I'm saying. So it's not about the numbers. That proves that. It's about the individual.
No, that isn't
what the individual do.
That isn't what I meant about people getting on the street about it. What I meant was people working in their own communities to plant the seeds to make the changes.
Well,
we do set up our own little food cooperatives that is just for your street or your block.
That's exactly what society needs. That's the community. But if you go back to, again, it's just looking back. Look back to see forward, Look back to the communities that were around in the 60s and 70s. The terrace streets had their communities. The little villages had their communities, and they've all been brought down. And the reason why I personally believe, I do believe it was government planned to do it, is because there was no power when there's no community. The communities if the road wanted to go through an area and a community said no, it didn't happen back then. Nowadays, if a road's going through an area, a community says no, they say, oh, I'll just sling some money at them.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, that applies to pretty much everything. You know, even recently, a government minister in the UK suggested that companies like Cordrilla, the fracking companies, offer sweeteners, and not on a borough level, but on a parish and even an individual level.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, that's a government telling a corporation to bribe people.
Yeah, that's how blatant it is. But if you look back and look forward and see what's happened with this privatisation of everything, and it could only have happened with the fall of the community. That's what you've got to do. It's got to start at grassroots. You've got to start making sure that every neighbour knows every neighbour. Now, if that means you have to throw a barbecue and get everybody involved and make sure that they're fucking right, that's what you've got to do. Because that's when you've got a gripe, you can turn around to them and say, fucking hell, that's not right, is it? What should we do about it together? That's what they did in the 60s, the 50s. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree.
In the 70s, it collapsed completely.
I agree totally with what you're saying there, Lee. And in a community, people would be there to support each other, and they'd also be there to tell people off if they was being naughty, or young kids as well. Like, keep everyone behaving and respecting each other and looking after each other. Nowadays, people can die in their houses and they're not discovered for years. And when I was in Australia, they've got this thing called Australia Day, Neighbour Day, and once a year they organise it so that everyone goes out and has a barbecue in their neighbourhood and invites all their neighbours so that they get to know their neighbours. And this was brought into action after somebody died, an old lady died in Perth and wasn't discovered for years. I can't remember how many years exactly, but this woman's body wasn't actually discovered for years. And after that, Neighbourhood Day came. And I thought it was a really good way of getting people out there and getting people to meet their neighbours, because most people don't know their neighbours anymore, do they?
No, you're right. I live in a little cul-de-sac, and there are 3 or 4 of us that have lived here a long time, and we all know each other, and we keep a lookout, you know, for each other and for the street in general. I mean, if somebody pulls into the cul-de-sac because they've broken down, within 10 minutes, somebody will be out there asking if they need a hand. You know, this is how my little area lives, but on the other side of that coin, there are a lot of new flats being built, and the people that live in those are very transient, and they don't really become part of the community because they're not there long enough. They just disappear. You know, you see them for a couple of months and you say hello to them, and then they're not there anymore and somebody else has moved in, you know. But those of us that have lived here, quite a number of years, we do all know each other, and we have our own little if there's an issue, planning permission issue or whatever, we will have meetings in each other's houses about it. I mean, maybe I'm lucky where I live. You know, the fact that it's a road that is a dead end, really. It used to be a through road until they built another major road and blocked off the end of it. But we do try and look out for each other, and I'm quite proud of the little community that I live in. You know, the fact that, I mean, it was only a couple of weeks ago and there was somebody stopped down the end, and I walked past and said, hey, do you need any help? I do need to get to the shop before it shuts. When I come back, I will give you whatever help I can. When I came back, 2 of my other neighbours were out there helping. It was brilliant. And the guy involved, he said that he never thought that sort of thing would happen. So he was really surprised as well. So hopefully that's rubbed off on him, and he will get together with a few of his neighbours and where he lives will become similar to where I live.
I actually get on well with my neighbours as well, so maybe it's not as rare as I was making out then. Maybe most people do, but when I've lived, no, actually, I'm trying to think. Most neighbours I've actually had, I do make an effort with my neighbours, really, because it's important to know your neighbours, I think, really.
Of course it is, yeah, because you never know when you might need help.
It doesn't take much just to smile and say hello, does it?
Absolutely not, no. It doesn't cost anything either. Because invariably people will say hello back. It's very difficult not to. Or if somebody smiles, it's difficult not to smile back. But I think, perhaps, people could organise a neighbourhood barbecue. I mean, it'd be fairly easy in my street because we could just close it. There's only people who live down here who use it. So, as long as you can still get emergency vehicles in, it wouldn't be a problem. I mean, it'd be more difficult for people that live on through roads and main roads and all the rest of it, but there's always a way around it. There's a local park, there'll be a bit of green somewhere, people's backyards, there's all sorts of ways to do it.
Yeah, that's what they just used to do in Australia. They'd meet up in parks as well as just, or one of the neighbours would say, let's have it in my garden this year, and somebody else would have it in their garden the following year. It was really nice, actually. I enjoyed that.
And we often have bring a picnic events in local parks around where I live. The big lunch, we've had those. People bring food to share, all sorts of things, really. So the spirit is there for people to want to be like this. It's just a question of getting more people to be like it. Don't be afraid of who lives next door. They're not going to bite you, or rarely will they bite you. So, how's your local community, Lee?
Life's a bit different in Spain. It's a culture shock to a lot of people. Obviously, that's why they like to come on holiday over here. Spain's a big difference to the UK in the fact that that's how I can see about the community breakdown, because they still have it here. And for example, they do a local fiesta here that's the whole town basically. All year long, every time they go to the supermarket, they'll buy an extra 6-pack of beer or an extra bottle of wine and or whatever. And then once a year, they have a big party where they just open the doors and anybody's allowed in and they can all have a drink and they can all eat whatever they want. Do you know what I mean? Gangs of people just open a house and fucking let everybody come in and get drunk, but everybody does it in the whole town at the same time. So you can go into 50 different houses where they've got parties going on till 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, no complaints. Because it's community. It's just like my neighbour, if she's cooked a shepherd's pie, she'll I do the same, Spanish lady or something like she'll come down if she's cooked a shepherd's pie and she's got some left over and she's it's going to go in the bin or the dog, she'll come down and knock on the door and say, do you guys want this? Do you get what I mean?
Yeah,
it's a different mindset. Before I put it in, if I say no, then it'll go in the dog or the bin. But they'll say, no, I'll go and ask the neighbours, see if they need it. Or if they'd like it. Maybe they haven't cooked dinner yet tonight. You just don't know. But that's the community sort of sense that brings people to Spain and makes them not want to leave,
Well, I can understand why you're there then. I mean, it must be a breath of fresh air compared to how it is in some places around here.
Well, I say, obviously, I've not seen the worst of it. I saw it bad enough. I left in 1990, but obviously, I've been back a lot of times and things. But it's just a shame, and I can see where it's broken down. It's the base level of community, streets, families, people next door, people knowing everybody that's around them. So you think about, I don't know your age or anything, but think about your mother or your grandmother. If she had a problem with some other woman that was looking at her fella, she'd walk 3 streets across, and she'd know what house and what door to knock at. So have a go at Beryl or whatever. Do you get what I mean? That's 3 streets across, and she'd know exactly which door to knock on to have a go at Beryl. Do you get what I mean? We've got to look back, and we've got to bring that back to our country, I think.
No, I'm totally in agreement with you. You know, to me, this seems like the only solution for a decent future for everyone.
Yeah, bringing it back to base level. I think we're running out of time there as well. Bob, I don't know if you want to finish it up with anything?
No, you've still got a couple of minutes. It's just, you know, interesting trying to put all these pieces together, and I don't know whether we've actually got any further than when we started, apart from we've come up with a few really neat solutions that we all ought to be working on. I mean, obviously, yeah. you in Spain, it's there already, so I guess you just need to help maintain it. Whereas for a lot of us here, we've got to grow it again.
That's it. You've got to fall back onto the traditions, you know.
Yeah, I think today that we've just brought in something that we can all focus on doing that is actually doable and obtainable in our own communities. It's easy, it's obtainable in an easy step. It's like one little step, isn't it, towards the final goal of everyone getting back to the grassroots of working in their communities and supporting the community, supporting their local shops, supporting their local furniture maker, claiming back our high streets for us, and I think that's, yeah, it's a great thing to focus on. It's a great start, and because if you start thinking about it them and us, there's nothing you can do, is there?
Well, no, I mean, you've actually got to get out there and do some. Just thinking about it isn't going to change anything, really. I'm really pleased that we have hit on this little solution, and I thank all of you for being in the show tonight. Thank you all for your contributions, and thank you all out there for listening, and we will see you next week. Well, hear from you next week. Have a good week, everyone.
Things, yes, lots and lots of different things. There's chat, there's music, diversity, an occasional argument, you know, for the warmongers.
I have to channel the spirit. All right, let's see here.
This is not our radio. This is your radio. Darkcity Radio.
Television is not the truth. Television is a goddamn amusement park. Television is a circus, a carnival, a traveling troupe of acrobats, storytellers, dancers, singers, jugglers, sideshow freaks, lion tamers, and football players. We're in the murder-killing business. So if you want the truth, go to
Darkcity Radio.
God damn it!
Radio.
Hi, it's Rupert, and when my homosexual tendencies are at their height, I like to listen to the Dark City, because Barbara makes me feel pretty.
Tune in, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen. Darkcity Radio, every evening, every afternoon, every morning, in fact, every moment of every day. There is chat, laughter, music, and excitement like you wouldn't believe on
Darkcity Radio.
And he did this all on a waiter's salary, which practically nothing after taxes and drugs. I have to channel the spirit.
You're listening to Dark City Radio Live, and this is your host Dawn from the Dark City crew. Tune in at www.darkcityradio.com. You can find us by searching Dark City Radio on Facebook or Twitter.